Welcome back to PSC Tech Byte. In the previous episode, we have seen how we can create a React application to consume an external API, whether it is Microsoft Graph or a custom REST API. And we have also seen how you can, on the API side, if it is a custom one, rely on MSAL in TypeScript and Node.js in order to validate the authentication and the authorization of the user consuming your API. Today, in this episode, I want to show you how you can use the on behalf of flow of Entra ID in order to get an access token to consume an API from the backend API. So that basically you can have a React consumer or any other kind of consumer for your API, which will be able to consume a backend API, which then will use an on behalf of flow token to consume yet another backend API, like for example Microsoft Graph on behalf of the user. So like it is the same user in the front end who is consuming the API from the backend API. It is really easy to do when you use MSAL, and I'm going to show you how to do that to consume Microsoft Graph. But you can do that to consume any other first-party or third-party API registered in your Entra ID tenant. So, like always, let's move to the demo environment and let's see how to do that in practice. Let's start from the end user experience. This is the React application that we have already seen in the previous episodes. And here I have the invoke Microsoft Graph button, which we used in the past, as well as we have the invoke REST API button, which now is calling the backend API to get the username as well as to send an email on behalf of the user. And in fact, if we look at our inbox, in a matter of few seconds, I will have an email message sent from the backend API, and here it is. Let me open it and show you the actual content of the message. Here it is. It is a message from the user we have in the front end, targeting my own user, and this is a demo email from a protected API sent on behalf of the user. How can we do that? Well, in Azure Entra ID, as before, I have a consumer application and I have a REST API. And in the REST API, at API permission level, I granted the mail.send permission, delegated permission, to my custom backend API application. And I granted those permissions with an admin so that I will be able to do the on behalf flow. This is one of the options we have to have the on behalf flow in place. Then in the certificates and secret, I created a client secret for my application that I configured in my REST API in the backend. So let's switch to the REST API, and here I added the package for Azure MSAL node, for the Microsoft Graph client, as well as for the isomorphic fetch to support Microsoft Graph client making REST API requests. In the auth.config file, I configured the client secret together with the client ID and the authority that I was using before in my previous examples. And in the index.ts file, so basically the actual implementation of my REST API with Express, I'm importing the confidential client application and on behalf of request from the MSAL node of Azure. I'm importing the client for the Microsoft Graph SDK and the isomorphic fetch package. Then here I create an instance of the confidential client application, providing as the settings the authentication setting of my MSAL configuration file, which I imported right here as well. And then in my API implementation, in the previous episode, we were just sending a message back to the user. Now we actually get the access token from the request headers, from the authorization request header. We create an on behalf of request of MSAL, providing the access token as the assertion and saying that we want to get the default permission scopes for Microsoft Graph in this scenario, because I'm willing to consume Microsoft Graph as my target API with the on behalf of token. And then using the confidential client application, I use the asynchronous method acquire token on behalf of, providing the request, and I will get back a response. And we can see right here in the console application that we have the access token that I retrieved using this flow, and I can show you the content of this token just for the sake of completeness. If I go to jot.ms, in this token we can see that this token is for Microsoft Graph, and it has been issued for my REST API application. And in the permission scope, I have the mail.send and the user.read permission, which were defined in the API permissions for my backend API. So exactly what I was looking for. And then we use that token to initialize a client of Microsoft Graph SDK, and then we just send an email to the target user, which is myself right now in this demo. So really simple and straightforward. The key section is here, where you create the on behalf of flow request and you acquire the token on behalf of the user, providing the access token that you have got in the request. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.